Hello, all, and welcome to Shakira's Corner, where we discuss pertinent agenda items from the Board of Commissioners meetings with Commissioner Chakira Johnson, as well as share community updates from DeKalb County District 4. In addition to serving on the BOC, Commissioner Johnson is also a member of 3 county committees. The FAB committee, which evaluates finance, audit, and budget matters for the county, the ERPS committee, which handles employee relations and public safety, and the PWI committee, which stands for Public Works and Infrastructure, an area Commissioner Johnson is well versed in. Hello, Commissioner Johnson, and thanks for being with us today. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Doing
Yes,
well.
good to be here. Good to be here again. So, what is new in District 4? We've got a lot of stuff happening, a lot of things that we're working on. I think we're going to talk about Memorial Drive and the new monument program that's underway. There's a program that the DeKalb History Center will be putting on that highlights parts of Memorial Drive or all of Memorial Drive. Great part of which is in District 4. And then I think we're going to highlight later on in the podcast, we have a cookout coming up, which will be Shakira's Cookout, which is my first back to school big event as your District 4 commissioner. That is June 28th. We'll highlight that more later in the podcast. So there's been a lot of stuff happening, a lot of work happening at the BOC, and just excited to get the opportunity to talk about all of it.
Excellent. And you know me, I'm excited to hear about it too. And I know that our audience will be excited to hear about it as well, considering the feedback that we get.
Yeah, we've gotten really good feedback, which is exciting. Who knew that people would want to listen to a podcast about the Board of Commissioners
I
for
would.
DeKalb County?
But maybe that's a little self-serving. I wanted a podcast from our, local leader. So
Yes.
here we are.
And because of you, here we are. You do all the hard work behind the scenes. I just talk.
All right. Well, the first thing that we're going to start off today with, it looks like we're probably going to go over some of the things that have been going on with the millage rate. So I'll go ahead and put this up on the screen here.
Yes, so it is millage rate season. This happens every year this time of year. This year was a little different. So at the voting meeting last Thursday, because of the holiday, we moved our meeting to Thursday instead of Tuesday. The BOC Board of Commissioners did adopt a tentative millage rate. And on the screen, you can see a millage rate important dates. So on 5/29, we adopted our tentative millage rate. On 6/24, we will have 2 of our required 3 public hearings. Even though our tentative millage rate, which is, I forget the exact number, we can find it and put it up on the screen, but it was just over 20 mills. And again, that is a tentative millage rate. Even though we're not necessarily increasing property taxes because we're increasing the millage rate, but because your property values have gone up and therefore it would appear as a property rate increase, we must advertise and hold 3 public hearings as such. So you'll see here on the screen, the first ones are scheduled for on June 24th, and then the final one will be on July 8th. And then we are also set to approve the final millage rate on July 8th. And then once we've approved the final millage rate, our departments and administration must submit our 2025 tax digest to the Georgia Department of Revenue by July 25th. And then you'll start seeing your property tax bills mailed out beginning in the middle of August. Your first payments are due, your first part of your payment, because we do it in 2 installments here in DeKalb County. The first one is due September 30th, and the second one is due November 15th. So all of this is pretty standard for what you've seen in the past. There was a little bit of a nuanced change with House Bill 581, which was the homestead exemption that was passed last year, as well as House Bill 92, where the difference is the BOC did not actually have to adopt a tentative millage rate. A tentative millage rate previously was just kind of provided by the administration based on budget needs and what they knew projected they would need, and that is what was advertised. What the difference this year is that the BOC actually had to take a vote to adopt the tentative millage rate. So that is a little bit different than what you've seen the county do in the past. And so what will now that the tentative millage rate has been adopted and will be advertised in our legal organs as well as on our website and and other avenues to make sure everyone is aware of it. And just before I continue on that rate, we're showing some information on what is an ad valorem tax or property tax is imposed on the assessed value of your property. So what I mentioned earlier is a lot of our assessed values are going up. Your home value is going up because of new construction or whatever's happening in the market right now. So we set a millage rate is the tax rate levied for the ad valorem property taxes of that assessed value. So it's not one millage rate, then a millage rate is expressed in mills. So a levy of 1 mill is equal to $1 for each $1,000 in value. So if you have $100,000 in value, then only $1 for each 1,000 in value. So we're not getting, we're not saying we're going to get a full. When we say it's 20 mills, it's really 0.02 percentage. So a millage is not exactly a percentage. It gets a little confusing, which is why we try to have this actual description up here on the screen. And this is from a presentation that TJ Sigler did for the BOC. He's our budget guru for DeKalb County. He provided this document and presentation to us on May 5th. And again, he went over it again at the last meeting on May 29th. So just some background information when you hear when you hear millage rate, it can be a little confusing. We will be discussing and drilling down on what is exactly needed. I think it's also important to note that when we set a tentative millage rate, whatever we advertise, we cannot go above that. We could easily go below, which is likely what we will do. But whatever we advertise, that is our cap. We can't go any higher than that. We have to either stay at that tentative or go below that tentative. If we were to try and go above it, we would have to start the process over with the three public hearings and all that. And the timeline just doesn't allow for that, for us to meet the critical deadlines for us to collect taxes. And it's critical for us to meet the timeline to collect the taxes because that is the bulk of our funding source here in DeKalb County. And for every municipal government, county government, the bulk of their taxes usually comes in property taxes. So we will hear more information back from TJ and his team and CEO and COO, their administration team. They'll be looking at projections as they're coming in. The tax assessor's office will have provided appraisals, people who have appealed their property of assessments. We'll start getting that data in and be able to determine exactly what the final rate will be. And we'll make that final decision again on July 8th. And up here on the screen, we have a mention of the rollback rate. So the rollback rate is a rate that would means that we would be assessing a millage rate that would be equivalent to exactly what the county received last year. So taking into account that property values have gone up, what would that rate be to make sure that we're not getting not a penny more than what we received last year? And so that is the equivalent of a rollback rate. And if we had chosen the rollback rate, we would not have necessarily needed to advertise as much or had the 3 property public hearings. But again, just to be safe, to make sure that we are able to collect enough money to handle the budget as we've approved it and all of the services, be able to provide all the services and pay for all the services that we've promised our citizens. We've set the tentative rate. We will drill down and likely lower it slightly. We've not really raised the overall millage rate in years. It has been pretty stagnant, or if not, just inch down just a little bit lower. But we always want to make sure that we are able to provide the services that we've promised our citizens that we would provide. And just like for everyone else, goods and services, costs of goods and services are going up. And so they also go up for the county as well. So you have to make sure you can afford all of those items.
True. So, in speaking about the millage rates, one of the things that we were going to discuss today is we're going to talk about some zoning updates and some updates with Memorial Drive. So let's start with some of it looks like some zoning restrictions to build, like the size per acre has been adjusted. Is that correct?
So we have not finalized action on that. I think we may have touched on this a couple podcasts ago. There is a proposal before the BOC, and it's been deferred a couple times, but there's a proposal before the BOC to allow to reduce the minimum house size for two of the residential zoning zoning classifications. I believe it's R60 and R75. So to reduce the minimum house size. So this would mean that essentially, especially good for infill houses here in District 4, we don't have a lot of open space for developers to build new residential subdivisions. But if you have an R60, R75 residential lot that maybe, had a blighted property that had been demolished and you want to put a new home on it, so now you can put a slightly smaller home that still fits in with the character of the neighborhood, still could be high quality construction, but just a little bit smaller, which means it could have a smaller starting cost point, would cost a little less for the developer or builder to construct, and therefore be a little more affordable for the property to be purchased by a resident. So I'm not saying it is a clear affordable housing stock or workforce housing type of stock, but it's a way to bring the cost of a house down and make it a little more affordable. So there's been a lot of discussion on the BOC about this item. There's some opinions that believes that this would increase density. This would not increase density because your lot size is not changing. So you're not getting more lots in the same area, but you are getting some smaller houses in the same area. So again, it wouldn't increase density. I personally don't believe it would decrease your property values. I think anytime you can bring in new construction, it would have a positive impact on your property values if you're in the neighboring areas. So the discussion continues. I believe it was up. I think we put it on a 30 or 60-day deferral cycle. So we have not made that decision yet. Hopefully, we will get to a point where we can kind of come to a consensus among the board members and make a decision on this item. But I think it's a very interesting concept, and I think it could help in certain situations. For instance, Habitat for Humanity. I know when I was on Stone Mountain City Council and they built a couple of their homes within city limits of Stone Mountain, they were slightly smaller homes and they had to come in and get a variance to put in that smaller home. So this would allow for them not to have to go through a variance process if they just want to have a home that's a couple hundred square feet smaller than what is in the current standard. So we're not talking like a cottage home. We're just talking, I think it's like a 1,200 square feet versus 1,600 square feet. So, just a couple hundred square feet smaller. So it can help the developer also build a little faster because they wouldn't have to go through a lengthy variance process. If they can build a smaller house by right, then that's just one step in the process that they don't have to go through.
Got it. So that smaller house is, affordable in the sense that you're not paying, because I don't know what the square footage is right now, but $124 a square foot or something gets real expensive if the minimum that you can build is 15 or 1,600 square feet versus if you're spending that and you can build smaller. Plus, smaller house, bigger yard.
Exactly. A little less, a little more space from your neighbors, you know.
Right, right. You don't have to make that string so long between your solo cups.
Yes, yes. I think that's a reference that our younger generation may not get, Carrie.
They should. That was so fun.
But it was fun. Gen X was a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, and you couldn't get any telemarketer calls on those lines either, so really made it worth
Yes, yes, it really did.
it. Well, that is good to know. That certainly helps with affordability because somebody might not be able to build a 5,000 square foot home, but they can afford to build a 1,200 square foot home.
And it does help increase the overall some building stock. And if you've been following a lot of the housing discussion, not just in DeKalb County, but in general, there's this concept of the missing middle, where you have the middle class, which can afford a home, but like you said, maybe not the 5,000 square foot home, but maybe they want a little newer, but not, they don't want a cottage home. So this is like something in the middle that might be a good stock to be able to include and have in DeKalb County, but I think it could really suit some areas in District 4. Like I said, some of the infill housing. So it's a longer discussion. We're having continued discussion on, we have a zoning ordinance update that's coming in the next couple of years. I'll be working on that, as well as we have a housing plan study that hopefully we will approve the RFP in 30 days, and that will start hitting the street, and we'll be getting more information and community outreach on the status of housing in general in DeKalb County, which will help inform the BLC on actions that we do need to take moving forward to making sure that we are tackling our housing problem here in DeKalb County, but it's really an issue across the country.
Yeah, well, I think that that's a really creative way to start addressing the issue and moving things in that direction. Speaking of zoning, can you tell us a little bit more about just kind of the zoning process in general? Because I know that sometimes that process can be a little bit overwhelming for people who might want to start down that path.
Yes, and we've had District 4, we have had a couple special land use permit cases, or SLUPs as we call them, in the last couple months. We had one a couple weeks ago, and I think some of their neighbors, this was for a personal care home, some of the neighbors were a little upset just about the process in general. So I thought it would be a good idea to just kind of talk about the process. So when you're a property owner, you have certain rights because you own the property, and you have some rights, some things you can do on your property by right. We can use a personal care home as an example. So depending on what zoning district you're in, you can have a personal care home up to 3 people by right. All you have to do is fulfill all your state requirements, because there are state requirements for that, and then get a business license from the county. But you would need a SLUP, that special land use permit, if you want to do more than what is allowed by right. For instance, if you want to go 3 or more or 6 or more residents at your home for this personal care home, and that's whether it's for children or for adults, the rules kind of apply the same. So you have a right to submit an application to either get a rezoning that might allow you to have that more dense personal care home. And then it also requires that special land use permit, or SLUP. So as the property owner, you have that right to make that application. And once the planning department receives that application, there is a process that must be gone through by law. Part of that is, we receive the application, they make sure it is acceptable to the planning department receives the application and make sure everything's in line. And then there's certain steps. There are certain community outreach that the applicant must do. We will, as a board of commissioners, we have the final say. The board of commissioners, we're attending a board of commissioners zoning meeting is the last step in the process. So before it gets to us, the planning department will make a staff recommendation That can be approval. It can be approval with conditions. It can be a withdrawal. It can be a denial. And all of that is after they've looked at the code, after they've kind of heard from the community, talked to the applicant. They'll take all this into effect and then make their recommendation. But outside of staff, there also is the planning commissioners, which are appointed by each board of commissioners has an appointee on the planning commission. So they also will hear the cases. The applicants will have to present to them. The planning commission will make a recommendation similar to the planning staff, whether it's approval, denial, withdrawal, approval with conditions, whatever the case may be. And then another step is our community council. So each district outside of the super district, so each of the 5 regular districts have a community council. The community council is made up of 15 members that are appointed by that board of commission. So in District 4, we have the community council, which 11 of the 15 appointments are made by me. And they're members, just regular members of the community who've kind of raised their hand and shown an interest, applied, and then been appointed. And they sit on these community councils to hear these zoning cases. So 11 are appointed by me, and then 2 are appointed by each of the super district commissioners because they have appointments on each of the district community councils. They currently do not have their own community council because, again, I think most of us know that might be listening to this podcast that DeKalb County is a little unique, whereas every resident has 2 commissioners that represent them. The normal district commissioner, like me in District 4, and then their super district commissioners, which would be District 6 or District 7. So we make sure that all of that is represented on the community council. They also are presented the information by the applicant and make a recommendation of whether approve, deny, approve with conditions, withdrawal, whatever the case may be. And so when it comes before the board of commissioners at a zoning meeting, we have all of that information has taken place. So we've kind of heard from the community. We'll get, depending on the situation, we might get flooded with emails one way or another. We might get flooded with emails in favor of a zoning item or against a zoning item. And then we will have the staff report we have. We know what community council decision was or recommendation was, and we know what the planning commission recommendation was. And then we also hold a public hearing before the zoning commission. And again, there are certain rules and laws that must be followed when it comes to zoning items. And so there's a certain order in which we must do all of this. So we hold a zoning public hearing before we make a decision on every item. And that zoning hearing gives time for the applicant to plead their case. They get 10 minutes to plead their case. Those opposing the items also gets 10 minutes. And then we hear from staff to give a recommendation. We deliberate as a board of commission. And then there is also DeKalb County follows what is called ward courtesy. So basically, if an item is in your district as a district commissioner, if the district commissioner or the super district commissioner who oversees that one area does not approve an item, then the item cannot be approved, no matter how the rest of the board of commission votes. So we really allow for the district commissioner and that corresponding super district commissioner to really lead the discussion because it is their district. It's in their, it's in their area. They know their district more than anybody. But all the commissioners do get a vote on each zoning item. But again, for instance, if for some reason, and I don't know that this has really happened, but if there were an item that me as the District 4 commissioner listening to the community was upset and against it. So that's how I ended up voting. And that's how the super district commissioner ended up voting was against an item, but there was 4 votes in favor of the item would still fail because the super district and district commissioners that have purview over that item were not in favor of it. So that can be a little confusing. And I just really wanted to take the opportunity to kind of talk through why the community may see some items coming before us when they're like when the community is adamant. And it's not that doesn't happen just in District 4. I've seen it happening in other districts, but the community is adamant that they don't want XYZ in their community. So sometimes they're like, why are you even hearing this? We've told you we don't want this item. Well, there's a process. Like, we've heard you. It's not that we're ignoring you, but the applicant has the right by law to go through the process. And we would be violating the laws if we did not allow it to go through the process and make it to a final vote. So me nerding out on certain things, I must nerd out at least once a podcast. So
Wouldn't be doing it right if you weren't.
look, it wasn't even infrastructure this time.
That's true. That's true.
It's usually like a stormwater pipe or something.
Yeah, it's I know it's a process, and people are, they tend to get frustrated with the length of time that it can take, but it sounds like even with all things being equal, there's still a number of meetings that these applications have to get through before they can actually, put the shovel in the ground.
Correct. That's a good point to make. So even if an item goes through the 3 to 6 month process of getting a rezone or getting a special land use permit, that depending on what the project is, let's say if it's a redevelopment of a shopping center to put up something new, they still have to get, after they've gone through the rezone or the SLUP process, they still have to get all relevant permitting as well, which can still be another 3 to 6 months, depending on the detailedness and how involved the project is. So just because you might see us take action on a zoning item doesn't mean you're going to see that. You may not necessarily see that action or work starting to happen within a couple of weeks after the zoning, because now they're going through the permitting process. So they have to have the land disturbance permits, they have to have any state approvals, and it goes through multiple departments. GDOT might be involved. Watershed, there might be a fire review. There's just a lot of moving pieces. Even after a zoning approval, there's just a lot more work that needs to be done before you could might start seeing a shovel hit the ground and dirt start moving on a project. And I think that can get lost a little bit in translation, because sometimes it might be a year later and people have forgotten about it and they're like, oh, why did this pop up all of a sudden? Well, they've been going through the permitting process and now they've gotten their permits and now they can start construction.
Sure. Or as in some cases, an application is, vehemently rejected by the community, and then the applicant goes back and kind of reconsiders what sort of zoning that they're going to apply for. And so you can see something kind of fall off, town halls and city meetings fall off, and then a year or two down the line, you see the same applicant come up with a different sort of development that they're trying to get through the zoning process.
Or not a different type of development. We've seen that too. And that's a great other point to make. If something is denied or withdrawn from, or a withdrawal was approved, that doesn't mean it's completely dead. They do have the right to come back after a certain period of time and reapply, make a change to the project, or sometimes they don't make a change. Sometimes maybe they've just done a better job of communicating with the community to see if they can get the community on board with what they're trying to do. But again, by law, by right, they have the right to make a reapplication.
Makes sense. Well, speaking of zoning, I know that we've got some updates on Memorial Drive and some of the developments that are being pushed through now. And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So are we talking the new property the county is purchasing? Or are we talking Memorial Drive monuments? Which one do you?
Yeah, let's start with the monument, and then I've just got a little snapshot here of the building that DeKalb will be purchasing.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Yes. So, I think we've talked about this in previous podcasts that the Memorial Drive revitalization plan that my predecessor initiated a few years ago, and that we are actively working to continue to develop and push through fruition. Part of that was a monument sign program. We met on this last Friday. Carrie, you were in that meeting, so please correct me if I'm missing something, but we have certain monuments that have been designed. They have their locations have been approved by GDOT. We're having a little bit of a hiccup on getting our final signatures required so that we can really start fabricating them and installing them. And hopefully we can get you guys soon an image of what the monument signs will look like. But it's part of our rebranding process to make sure that, you know, we are owning and just taking ownership of what Memorial Drive is to the community. The revitalization process had a lot of community engagement, and so that's one of the big things that came out of that was a rebranding and just basic ownership and making sure that we are just taking care of Memorial Drive because it's heartbeat of our community and we know and love it so well. So hopefully we will get through this little bit of a hurdle with GDOT on these final signatures, and in the next quarter to half a year, we'll start seeing the monuments being fabricated and installed. Did I miss anything on that one?
No, I am just excited, as I'm sure you are, to see those
Mhm.
finally come to fruition because it's been a long time in the works, and I think it's you know it shows the progress that is being made. It might not be quick, but it is real and it is happening and it is
Yes,
moving forward. And so these monuments will be a really nice way to kind of refocus people's vision, I think, of that area and maybe get energized around revitalizing that corridor. I know we touched on this a little bit on the last podcast, but DeKalb County is purchasing some land over there. Is that correct?
that is correct. And so I'm super excited about this because this is in District 4. So the Cab County, a few months ago, the BOC came out of executive session and announced the purchase of 4380 Memorial Drive for roughly $19 million. So most recently, it was determined that the best mechanism for the county to purchase this property, again, this is where the current tax commissioner's office is. And I know I didn't know this until I got on the BOC that the county does not own this property, which is about 25 acres and has held the tax commissioner's office, as well as voters of elections and a couple other county offices. I think there's some fleet maintenance over there as well. We've leased this property for about 20 or 30 years at $1 million a year. So I also believe the figure I heard that the value of that property when we started leasing it was $5 million. So imagine if we had actually purchased it instead of leasing it way back when.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also interesting on this property, it's my understanding that this is the site of the original Home Depot. So a lot of history on this property. It's really kind of cool. But so the powers that be in the county determined that the best mechanism for the county to purchase the property is to have the urban redevelopment agency actually make the purchase of the property. And so urban redevelopment agency, or URA, is not something that we've heard much about in recent time here in DeKalb County. So the URA is chaired by the CEO, and then the board members of the URA are the Board of Commissioners. So at our last meeting on Thursday, May 29th, we actually convened a meeting of the URA, again, chaired by CEO Lorraine Cochran Johnson, with the rest of the BOC as the board, and we voted to start the bond process to have bonding, which is the finance mechanism for the purchase of this property. That vote did take place last Thursday, May 29th. And we will convene the URA again, I believe, on June 17th. So basically, the URA had to say, yes, we want to get a bond on this property. And now we put it out on the street, basically like a proposal, and the banks will bid on it. And we will pick who the bonding company, who the finance company will be. And that will be the action that we take on June 17th. And then on June 25th is when the closing date of the property will be. So very excited. We're in the due diligence period, but it is out in the public now, so we can talk about it. So we don't own it yet, but hopefully on June 25th, we will close on the property. And it's just a big win, and it's a good example of the progress and the vision that CEO Cochran Johnson, as well as the current BLC, has for the county, because not only were we paying $1 million a year in lease on this property, we were also responsible for maintenance and upkeep. So we were paying a lot of money into this property that we did not own. So I think it's really critical to take ownership of this property. And ultimately, it's also another area that the county is going to own 25 acres at a critical location right there at Memorial Drive and 285. And ultimately, we can work together. And the plan is to create a master plan for the property. I personally would love to see some type of mixed use development that includes government offices, and maybe workforce development, as well as some other services, a grocery store, a market, something of that effect, maybe a restaurant in that area, because that area is really lacking on those type of services. We have Kensington is a couple streets down, and so we have two new developments going up with a couple hundred units going up in that area, as well as at Covington and Memorial. There recently was built another development with another couple hundred units, but we haven't had additional grocery stores or drugstores or anything else being built in the area that those residents will need, services that they will need, especially something that's walkable from that, not that far away. So it might take us a while to actually redevelop that parcel, but the first step is ownership of the parcel. So I'm very excited about this one.
Yeah, that would be such a great location to kind of replace some of the retail spaces that have been lost that used to be in that shopping center on the other side. But it's such a good location being right off the interstate there. You know, there's so much traffic because there's so many people that work right there. I'm sure they would really love to have, some of those modern amenities right there instead of having to kind of drive a beat to get to them.
Exactly. So I know price tag seems a little high, but there's so much that we can do. And I think ultimately the return on investment that the taxpayers will see is going to be worth it.
Agreed. Well, speaking of all the fun things that are happening in June, I know that we've got some events coming up that we'd like to go ahead and let people know about. Starting with on June 14th, CEO Lorraine Cochran Johnson will be hosting a Juneteenth celebration. Let's go ahead and get that up on the
Yep. CEO
screen.
and the board of commissioners. Every board of
Mhm.
commissioner and the CEO have put money into this event. It's going to be a fun evening on June 14th at Rainbow Park Amphitheater. So just a couple weeks away. I'm really excited about this. Juneteenth is actually one of my favorite holidays. So I'm excited about it.
And tying in with the whole Memorial Drive and events theme, uh, the DeKalb History Center has some things going on, featuring some communities of District 4. Uh, what's that about?
Yeah, so the DeKalb History Center currently has for Avondale Estates the Haven and Health and Happiness exhibit is going on now. It will close on June 23rd at the History Center. So make sure you get the opportunity to stop by and see that. And then opening on July 25th, they will be starting an exhibit on Memorial Drive. You can find all that on their website, decaphistory.org, and then look under exhibits. I'm really excited to see what they do for the exhibit on Memorial Drive. I have not had an opportunity to get in and see the Avondale Estates exhibit yet, but we'll try and get in and see that before June 23rd. Hope other people will stop by as well.
Yep, a lot of great events just kind of squished all together in the same, 2 week
Yes.
period, it seems like.
June is
Uh,
busy. June and July are going to be busy.
Not the least of which being your own event, your inaugural back to school preparedness event. I'll go ahead and bring up the flyer for that here. You can tell us a little
Yes,
bit more about it.
we are so excited about this. Shakira's Cookout, and thank you, Carrie, for putting together this amazing looking flyer. You are multi-talented. I don't think
Oh,
people know
thank you.
all the great things that you do behind the scenes. But this is our first event, big event. This will be our signature event for District 4. Like I said, Shakira's Cookout is June 28th from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the East Central DeKalb Community and Senior Center, which is at 4885 Elam Road. So that's our newest community center that was built a couple years ago. It's just an amazing space. So we're going to have a lot of fun. There will be some school supplies to give out, but we're also doing, I think we're going to have uniforms, shirts, polo shirts for the kids to kind of help the parents out on that level. The teachers will also be able to get school supplies that they're going to need for their classroom. We're going to have a cookout, of course. So we're going to have hamburgers, hot dogs, as well as turkey versions or non beef, non pork versions. And we also have someone who's volunteered to do a small fish fry for us. We'll have bouncy houses, a vendor space, including a lot of youth vendors. They're going to be shown having tents up where you can buy from one of our youth vendors. We'll have SWAT. We'll have fire. We're going to end. We'll have a live DJ all day long, and then we're going to end the evening with a concert. So just a really fun packed day for the entire community. We're really looking forward to it. Hope to see everybody there. We'll have some other giveaways, and this is really in partnership. I could not do this without Human Services and Parks and Rec, especially in Human Services, the Youth Services Division. They've been amazing partners as we're planning all this out. And then we're getting a lot of good sponsorship and help from the community. So please reach out if you would like to help sponsor any of these items. We try to get as much sponsorship as possible and not just pay from our district funds if we can, because anything we can offset, then we can put that money into another good cause here in the community. So very excited. It's going to be a great day. Hope to see everybody there.
Yeah. And of course, that way it's absolutely community driven. Um, and I know I'm looking forward to this event because you're shaking things up a little bit. You didn't want it to be just your standard back to school. You wanted a way to kind of celebrate summer, make sure that the teachers are equipped as well, that
Yeah.
parents have that kind of checked off their to-do list long before they're scrambling last minute to get supplies for their kid. This way they can get those supplies, take care of some requirements, outside of supplies that the kids
Yes.
need
So
and be
speaking
ready
of,
for school long
yeah,
beforehand.
speaking of requirements, I forgot to mention the health screenings that we'll have there. They can get their sports physicals done. So we're really trying to make it a lot of fun, but also a great need. So parents, please come out and check off all those boxes. And we're intentionally doing it in June. We know it's still very much summer come June 28th, but there's a lot of competition for back to school events in July. So come out and start off the back to school season with us and just have a lot of fun. Hope to see everybody.
Yeah. And why wait until the last minute to get your
Right away.
stuff for the school year? This way you've got it done and you don't have to worry about it. You can just celebrate summer, relax that last month before school sets in again.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, let's see here. I'm going to check my agenda. Oh, and then it's not in June, but you've got your second quarterly breakfast coming up, the Community Connection. Tell us a little bit more about what you have in store for July's edition.
Yeah, so I believe we're having it July 19th. This is our Community Connections breakfast. So that's a Saturday at 9 a.m. and it will be at Toby Grant. We have not solidified. We're still trying to make sure we know who our main speaker would be. I'm wanting to focus on either something economic development or planning and zoning related. So we're still trying to tie down exactly who the key speaker will be. But as always, we will have other department heads there. Hopefully, we'll get police, fire, code enforcement, um, maybe even watershed, other departments, and code. Code should be there too. And then, as always, we'll have our Q&A session. So it's a great time for the community to come out, ask a burning question that they've been wanting to know the answer to, and have access to our department heads to give them a direct answer. It's a little unique for District 4. We've been doing District 4 has held these events for years now, and the community loves it so much. So we will continue doing them quarterly. So excited to be doing our second one again. It is scheduled for July 19th in the heat of the summer, but it'll be early and we will feed you good food.
That's right. Come on out for the food.
Coming
It's
out for the
always a
food.
good opportunity to hear the
Yes.
latest things going on and to speak directly with someone in an department if you have a question about kind of how things are done. So we've always appreciated them showing up for that.
They're always been a really big supporter and it is greatly appreciated.
Indeed. Well, looks like we've come to the end of our agenda here. Thank you so much, Commissioner Johnson, for your time today. If anyone should have any questions for you, how can they reach you?
Yes. So if you ever have any needs or questions, the simplest way is to email me. My email is cjjohnson2 at DeKalbCountyGA.gov. But you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram at the handle of Commissioner Chakira Johnson. I'm on Blue Sky or X as at Commissioner CJJ. Please also consider subscribing to the YouTube channel here. If you do find this podcast helpful and you want to know whenever a new podcast is released, just remember to hit the bell icon and so you can receive the notifications in the future for future podcasts. Again, I just appreciate everyone tuning in, and we look forward to sharing more information with you in the future and in the next episode. So we always have a good time recording these, and I love that y'all allow me to nerd out every time. So.
Well, that's what we need. We need somebody that cares about what they're doing,
Right.
because otherwise, what's the point?
What's the point? Exactly.
All right, everyone. Well, links are in the description. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, stay happy and healthy, and we will hopefully see you for our back to school event, and we'll see you in the next podcast as well.
Yep. Have a good one, everybody. Stay good out there.